All right, today we're going to be talking a lot about hyperkeys. Now, if you watched my last video, you'll remember that I said that there are as many functions as there are keys on your keyboard, plus, not to mention that you can always do a combination of Shift, Control, or Alt, or any combination of those with any of the keys here. So there are very, very many options with hyperkeys. If you attended last week's class, then you will have received the handout from Linda that covers a lot of very basic and incredibly useful features of hyperkeys. The way that I'm going to set up today's video is in line with what happened during last week's class, if you were on campus or at least attending remotely. We're going to be going through the same documents that I provided to show some real-life examples of how you are going to be using these hyperkey functions. First, what I have up here is just a throwaway transcript from quite a while ago. If you were following along in class, then we recommended you just open a random one to cover some of the, or to practice using some of the hyperkeys. You don't want to use it on a transcript that's important to you, because remember, every time you make a change in Eclipse, there's no need to manually save. Everything is being saved automatically. Now that can be dangerous if you're messing around too much. You start deleting whole lines and paragraphs, it could get messy. That's just the reason I have this ugly one up here. I'm going to move over and we're going to start talking about the first of the two sample transcripts, or what I call the transcript from HEL mini. Let's take a look. So we're going to go through this line by line and see instances where hyperkeys can play a role. But before we even get into hyperkeys, we're going to focus a lot on the info bar on the left-hand side. You will be amazed to see how many times the correct option of what you want will actually appear right here. Let me move this over a little bit so that we can see fully what is being said. Okay, these are all the options. Anything that's listed here will have a number along the left-hand side of it. That means that if it's the option you want, you can just click that corresponding number key on your keyboard. So let's move along. What's the first thing that will come up? Question: she is still working there? That's fine. On the farming, yes. Well, this isn't right. We want farming to be farm. So there are two ways you can go about this. You can either use the W and J hyperkeys function that we actually discussed in detail last week, or if you just glance on over, you'll notice that in my info bar, number 3 is the correct option. I'm just going to press 3. Now, before I move on, I should make a note about the info bars. Every single one of them is different depending on the user, because the info bar will use information such as AI data that it's already picked up by reading and analyzing your writing, or even just by what you have in your dictionary. So just keeping that in mind, it will look a bit different from your own, but the bottom line is that the info bar is still a great place to learn what to do. Moving right along, let's find, oh, we need to have a comma here. This is where we're going to learn that so long as you just press that correct punctuation on your key, it will toggle. I just press comma. Maybe I want a period. Maybe I want a question mark or an exclamation point. Nah, I'm just going to go with a comma. How nice is that? Just moves everything over and implements the proper spacing and capitalization for each case. Question: and tell me if you have seen it lately. Let me put a pause actually and get a hold of this better. Okay, sorry for that little pause. I just needed to bring my notes on over. I'm trying to remember everything that was covered in the order that it comes up. So, going back to the question, and tell me if you have seen it lately. That's actually a statement and not a question. So there's a question mark incorrectly placed at the end of this. What you could do is scroll on over, and heaven forbid you go into new, pressing N to go to new text, and then erasing it with backspace, and then pressing a period for the period. No. Whenever you are placed anywhere within that paragraph where you want the ending punctuation to be a period, while you're in hyperkeys, just press P. Your cursor jumps on over to the very end and inputs a period. Now we're on the subject. You want to add a P quickly to the end of a paragraph, you press P. You want to add a question mark, you just press Q. I'm going to show you. I'm going to go over to the beginning of it, in the middle of the sentence, Q. Well, that's easy. Yay. P. definitely get into the habit of using those. They come up very often, and they'll be very, very useful. All right, moving along. Answer. I don't know if it is nice. Okay, that's obviously a double stroke. How to erase a word? D. Very nice. Now I should note here, again, I hope that you notice my hand is staying right here on these 4 keys, J, I, K, L, because I'm navigating around. And as I navigate, my cursor will always place itself at the beginning of the word. You don't often want to find yourself in the middle of a word, because if you do a D to delete the word, it'll actually just delete everything to the right of the placement of your cursor. So unless you're doing something very special inside of the middle of a word, don't worry about that. And let's just jump from beginning of the word to the beginning of a word. Moving along. It has a 3-car garage. This is garage, obviously. But before we get to that, let's look right before it. A 3-car garage. Proper punctuation for this is to have a hyphen between these 2 words. So we're going to learn a little bit about inputting hyphens. First, you're going to have to press M to mark. It's just a fancy way of saying highlight. You're essentially highlighting or grabbing text. Mark. Look at that. It grabbed that first word. And if you actually look over here as well to the notes, you'll see that it just grabbed that stroke. But I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to press M again to mark the following word and stroke. Boop. Awesome. That's what I want. Now, whenever you have more than one word marked, highlighted, whatever you want to say, and you press a hyphen, can you see that? It input a little hyphen right in between. That's exactly what I wanted. Now, while we're on the subject of hyphening, you can highlight anywhere from, as long as it's more than one word, multiple words, and press hyphen to input a hyphen between each one. Now, let's say you have a single word and you want to put a hyphen between each letter. Well, you're going to do the same thing. Let me just grab one word as an example. I've navigated on over to the beginning of the word lately. Press M and just highlight that one by itself. Press hyphen. Look at that. It automatically input hyphens in between each letter of the word, and what's more, it made it all capitalized. Now that's because this function is understanding that you're trying to stitch something. And if I'm not mistaken, my settings and user settings say that if I'm stitching something, I want it to all be caps. I swear to goodness, I feel like I've seen different instructors and different reporters have their own standards of whether or not they want stitching to be all caps or just niche capped and then lowercase for the rest of the word. Let me take a moment to pause, and we're going to look inside our user settings to see how we can change that if we want. Follow along with me, and we're going to take a look at where inside of your user settings do you change it to signify how you want your stitching to appear. This is all related, so I might as well just throw it in there. I'm going to press Alt-U to bring up my user settings. From here, go to the Edit tab. What you're looking for is right here next to Stitch. Now it's all lowercase because I actually paused, and while the video is paused, I changed the settings to make sure it works. Well, let's click and see the different options. All lowercase stitching, niche capped followed by lowercase stitching, or all caps. Let's go to niche capped only. I should actually just do this. This seems to be more preferable from what I've seen. Now we're going to have the example. I'm going to grab the word tell. What's the process? Mark by pressing M once to highlight or mark that word. Hyphen. Oh, look at that. Instead of making it all capitalized as last time with lately, those were my prior settings, and now kept it all lowercase. Pretty nice to know. Let's move along inside of our transcript and learn some more hyperkeys. Garage. Now again, I did not make this file. This was actually provided during the Eclipse convention, 2015, gosh, April this year. Very nice. But this person purposely left steno strokes as raw steno, just to show how intuitive the info bar is. If we look down, mine shows the correct option, number 8. Now before I click it, let's take a look at what this number 2 in parentheses means. This means that it's going to affect the following 2 strokes. If I were to press gay with a 1, it's only going to affect this first one, ga. Maybe it's interpreting as gay incorrectly. So I want to press 8. Replaced it perfectly. Moving along. Question, was she there? Answer. She was outstanding in the field. Of course, I think he meant outstanding. 2 words. Oh, look at that. Option number 1. I don't have to think very much about this. Saving a lot of time, just taking that brief second, move your eyes over to the info bar and see if what you need is there. Now you might think, no, I want to keep my eyes here, going back and forth is annoying. Trust me, it might get a little getting used to, but it's worth it in the end. Question. When was that? Answer. About 2:30 yesterday. I need to do a time. It would take way too long for me to do N and then type in the correct numerals for time. Luckily, especially when it comes to number, InfoBar provides the correct option. In fact, anytime numbers show up, more than one, even one by itself, it'll usually give you a variety of options, either just as numerals by itself, currency form, date form, time form, or Roman numerals. My option is number 4. Perfect. Question. Was that on the 3rd? That's a date, so I will also change that to 1, because that was the correct option from my info bar. Now I'm putting my cursor at the beginning of yes, because this is where the witness was supposed to answer. When you're going along pretty quickly, back and forth, you have a tendency sometimes to, definitely miss a designation. So what I want to do, to break it right here in the middle of the sentence and input an answer paragraph, is F4. Now I've been trying to think of a mnemonic to remember this. Maybe 4 as in, for the love of God, I need an answer. Or maybe think of it as the number 4 kind of looks like an A, especially if you're into leet speech. Now you'll notice here that when I broke it off, it obviously created a new line as an answer paragraph setting, perfecto, and you know what? It just added that little question mark automatically to the end of the previous paragraph because it was a question paragraph. Now in line with this, now that we're on the subject of F4 for breaking off a new paragraph as an answer, why don't we learn about his brother? Breaking off, I'll do it right here, a paragraph to make a question. Put my cursor here, F3. Oh, added a perfect little punctuation at the end of the answer paragraph, added a question paragraph. That's what I wanted. At this point, I guess it would help to reiterate a very useful key. Z is the oops key. It will go back typically 1, maybe 2 moves that you may have gone wrong. Let's see what it does. Z. All right, that's nice. What if I do Z again? Oh, see, that's kind of funny. Pressing Z did get rid of that paragraph break, but it failed to get rid of the period, so we're not totally back to 0. Now, I'm going to say something. I just don't find that the the Z button works super reliably. So try and be careful in general when you're making changes. Or at the very least, again, play around with the throwaway script and just see what you learn and what applies. Sorry for that, my phone just went off. Okay, so I'm going to, actually at this point, we're 13 minutes in. So this is definitely going to be a 2-part, maybe even a 3-part video. I'm going to go and cover one more element before we cut off, and then you'll see me in part 2 of Hyperkeys with the transcript from HEL. Question. How is your knee? Answer. I had a rest throat scop ICAN surgery. Oof, what a mess. This also has some raw steno, and also, maybe not so much a misstroke, but basically, this person, when they were making their transcript, they did not have a dictionary entry where they have the correct, I don't know if you can see it behind this video, it's surg and then re, or surgery. This is a great example just to see how reliable the info bar is. Scrolling to the beginning of the word, look at that. Arthroscopic, perfect, and it's the 4 strokes, which would cover arthroscopic. I can. I'm going to press 4. Now at this point, before I move anywhere, the info bar changed again. It says, okay, the 4 strokes of arthroscopic equals arthroscopic, perfect. And the question is, it goes in which dictionary? Cuts off here. I could have extended it. I could either press 1 and add it to my main dictionary, 2 for my job, 3 for other, or just 4 is I just want it in this specific document. This is really great if a proper pronoun pops up, a name, you don't have your dictionary, so before I move, I could choose 1, 2, 3, or 4 and throw it right into a dictionary. Same thing with surgery. Notice again, when I moved, it stopped. And we're out of time. Crap.